Let's explore these mysteries together in today's video. The Earth crust displacement theory and the secret city. In the field of geology, the hypothesis of Earth's crust displacement once opened up an extraordinary new perspective on the history of Antarctica. According to this theory, tens of thousands of years ago, the planet's outer shell might have shifted relatively quickly compared to the inner core, dragging entire continents away from their original positions. If this event truly happened, then what we now know as Antarctica could once have been situated at much more temperate latitudes, a place where the climate allowed life to flourish, covered in forests and vibrant ecosystems. Indirect evidence for such a past usually comes from paleontological surveys and studies of geological sediments with plant and animal fossils that simply could not have survived in the icy conditions of modern-day Antarctica. There are also isotope analyses taken from deep ice cores, revealing dramatic cycles of climate change in the distant past. Adding to the intrigue are a number of ancient maps, such as the Piri Reis and the Bash maps, which seem to depict the coastlines of Antarctica free from ice. This has raised questions about whether ancient civilizations might once have observed, or even recorded, the true shape of the continent before the Great Freeze set in. Building on these clues, many have speculated that, before Antarctica was lost beneath the ice, advanced civilizations may have thrived there, civilizations whose traces now lie buried under miles of ice. The legend of Atlantis is often linked to this theory as well, since the timeline for the disappearance of that mythical city, as described by Plato, coincides rather closely with the period some geologists believe such a crustal shift could have occurred. If a civilization like that ever did exist, every last trace of it would have been wiped out as the continent drifted toward the pole and the climate turned harsh and forbidding. To this day, there's no solid proof of any city buried beneath the Antarctic ice, yet the theory of crustal displacement continues to fuel debate among scientists and stoke the imagination of those who wonder what might lie hidden beneath the eternal ice at the farthest reaches of our world. Human sacrifice rituals at Chichen Itza. At the city of Chichen Itza, scientists have carried out genetic analyses on remains found in the ancient Maya sacrificial pit. The research results have provided important new data and have changed the traditional approach to understanding human sacrifice in ancient Maya society. Instead of focusing on young girls as previously thought, researchers have now determined that the majority of victims in these ceremonies were male twins sharing the same bloodline. Genetic results show that these twin pairs selected for sacrifice are closely connected to Maya creation mythology. According to legend, the first two sets of twins descended into the underworld and underwent cycles of life and death, playing a key role in establishing the order of the universe. The twin sacrifice tradition at Chichen Itza, therefore, was not only a religious act but also reflected the deep connection between life, death, and the eternal cycle as conceived by the Maya. Archaeological findings at Chichen Itza reveal that the process of selection and execution of the rituals was highly organized. The twin victims were often chosen from the local community to undergo sacred rites and be sacrificed at the cenote's natural wells, believed to serve as gateways between the human world and the divine realm. Reconstructing the rituals based on genetic data and cultural memory has allowed scientists to identify the role of these ceremonies in maintaining social structure, as well as reaffirming the authority of the religious leadership at Chichen Itza. These discoveries have contributed to a new understanding of Maya culture and reveal the complexity of their belief system, as well as the way ritual was used to express their vision of how the universe worked. The cycle of life, death, and sacrifice was not merely a matter of myth, but was strictly practiced through twin sacrifice ceremonies, aimed at maintaining balance and continuity in ancient Maya society. Myth, transformation, and influence across cultures. The transformation and adaptation of mythology among the ancient cultures of the Near East was a continuous process, reflecting the competition and creativity of these communities in response to shifting social, political, and religious realities. The major gods of Mesopotamia and the Middle East were not just attached to a single civilization. They were constantly being redefined and absorbed into the belief systems of succeeding peoples. Marduk stands as a prime example of this development. He began as just one god among many in the Sumerian-Babylonian pantheon, but under the influence of political power and the need for social unity, Marduk gradually rose to prominence and ultimately became nearly unrivaled in ancient Babylon. This pattern is very similar to the emergence of monotheism in Israel, when Yahweh surpassed and absorbed or replaced all other gods to become the sole deity of the Jewish people. Legends of life and death, such as those of Tammuz and Inanna, or motifs about light and justice found in the story of Shamash, were all adapted through the ages. In Judaism and Christianity, stories of resurrection and the roles of light and darkness, concepts of justice and final judgment all trace their origins or are influenced by these ancient myths. Even in Islam, many symbols and motifs are borrowed or transformed from the older mythology of the Near East. It's notable that this process of transformation often involved the demonization of old beliefs. Gods who were once worshipped as patrons of harvest or justice, upon the rise of new religions, were frequently recast as demons or associated with negative traits to strengthen the absolute role of the new deity. This trend was most pronounced with the dominance of monotheism, as in the cases of Baal, Kos, and even Enlil, all eventually labeled evil gods in later scriptures and religious writings. The transformation of myth and symbol also reflected the struggle for influence among power groups. Mythology was not just about personal faith, it became a political tool to control social consciousness and to create a boundary between us and the others. Motifs of battles between good and evil gods, stories of the end times, or of humanity's salvation were maintained and adapted to serve this purpose. Thus, ancient myths and gods never completely disappeared. They were continually reborn to fit new circumstances, serving as both foundations and targets of exclusion in the development of major religious systems. This interplay created the intricate and ongoing tapestry of spiritual culture in the Middle East and throughout humanity. The forgotten civilization of the Sahara. Archaeological research in the Libyan desert has confirmed the existence of the Garamantes civilization, which rose and thrived more than 2,000 years ago. Beginning with analyses of modern satellite imagery combined with aerial photographs from the 1950s, scientists have identified a network of architectural remains, including fortresses and agricultural systems scattered deep within the Sahara interior. These discoveries have sparked new theories about the scale, technological sophistication, and social organization of the Garamantes. One of their most remarkable achievements was the Fogaras, an underground irrigation system. This network of subterranean canals drew water from aquifers or lowland basins to residential and agricultural areas. The system was highly advanced, requiring an understanding of groundwater levels and stable construction methods suited for desert terrain. Many of these canals stretched for several kilometers, providing a steady water supply for agriculture and supporting large populations in regions that receive almost no rainfall year-round. Architectural remains show that the Garamantes built numerous fortresses from stone or sun-baked brick, grouped together with defensive walls. Residential buildings and public spaces were sensibly laid out, demonstrating organized social structure and division of labor. In addition, the Garamantes developed centers for metalworking, toolmaking, and pottery, all aimed at meeting daily needs and facilitating internal trade. The discovery of writing fragments and working tools proves the existence of a centralized management system and the transfer of technical knowledge within the community. Wise management of resources and strict control of water sources were key factors that allowed the Garamantes to sustain large, stable settlements in an arid climate. Archaeological evidence also reveals commercial exchange between the Garamantes and other North African regions, especially along caravan routes that transported goods from Egypt and the Sahel. Unlike their contemporaries, who were influenced or controlled by the Roman Empire, the Garamantes developed independently, holding a central position on the southern edge of the Sahara. Their sphere of influence stretched across strategic oases, serving as transit points for goods and precious metals. The material legacy left behind is a testament to the adaptability of the community and offers new insights into social dynamics and technological innovation in prehistoric North Africa. Overall, archaeological evidence from the Garamantes clarifies the rise and fall of a society that endured in the desert for centuries, while providing a fresh perspective on the human ecosystems of the Sahara before the arrival of major political powers. The Demon Graveyard in Russia. Hidden deep within the Siberian forest lies a strange patch of land that locals call the Demon Graveyard, a place where no tree grows, no trace of animal life appears, and the land stands utterly barren amid a sea of trees. For decades, research teams and explorers have come here searching for answers to this eerie phenomenon. but no definitive conclusion has been reached as to why all life has vanished from this area. Some theories favor physical causes, suggesting that the site might be the aftermath of a small meteorite impact or the result of a toxic gas eruption from deep underground. There have also been studies noting magnetic anomalies and unusual soil composition, but so far, no toxic substances or abnormal radiation have been found. Folkloric and supernatural explanations exist side by side with scientific analysis. In Russia's Far East, locals pass down stories of ghosts and the mysterious disappearances of explorers who never returned. Some older generations have even erected wooden stakes and small statues along the edge of the site, as if to warn travelers to keep away. Many unofficial expeditions have reported feelings of dizziness, and there have even been cases of unexplained fainting, adding yet another layer of legend to the mist that shrouds the demon graveyard. Geologically, the area forms part of the icy plains, where many mysterious explosions have been recorded in local history, the most famous being the Tunguska event of 1908, caused by a meteorite exploding in the atmosphere. However, the traces at the demon graveyard are much smaller, with no charred rings or deformed rock typical of major impact craters. Another hypothesis suggests that a gas eruption may have poisoned the soil locally, wiping out all life in a narrow area for decades. While research teams continue to collect data, the area remains frozen amid the sea of forest, standing both as a geological oddity and a source of mysterious legends still unexplained. The demon graveyard has become one of the great challenges for modern science, blending natural phenomena and folk belief in a single enigmatic spot on Russia's map of mysteries. Zombie creatures awaken. Amid the frozen expanses of Siberia, scientists have drilled deep into the permafrost, which has been hidden beneath ice for tens of thousands of years, to collect ancient sediment samples. Within these dark blocks of ice, they discovered tiny creatures almost invisible to the naked eye that had been trapped in a state of suspended animation, surviving well beyond the limits of ordinary biology. Once brought back to the laboratory and revived under sterile conditions, some of these ancient microorganisms began to stir and move slowly under the microscope. These are the true zombies of the microscopic world. The most remarkable case is the rotifer, a simple multicellular organism which was found to still be capable of asexual reproduction after 24,000 years frozen in ice. Using genetic analysis and cellular structure examination, researchers confirmed that not only had its internal structures been preserved, but its metabolism and even its ability to clone itself were intact. This level of survival goes beyond anything previously known about the limits of life, withstanding near absolute zero temperatures and nutrient-free environments. The story of these ancient rotifers is not just about their astonishing endurance, it raises profound questions for astrobiology. Their revival after tens of thousands of years without oxygen or water inspires new theories about the potential survival of microorganisms on other celestial bodies, where conditions are even more extreme than on Earth. The ability to cross between life and death, pausing all metabolic activity only to resume when the environment is favorable, is a survival strategy that many ancient life forms have used through past ice ages. Research into rotifers and other ancient creatures revived from permafrost is also expanding our understanding of epidemiology and the potential risks posed by prehistoric bacteria and protozoa that once thrived on Earth. As the ice melts due to climate change, the return of these ancient life forms is not only a matter of biological curiosity, but also a question of modern biosecurity. Each successful revival of a zombie organism from the ice challenges the boundaries of what humanity knows about the origins and resilience of life in the universe. The role of the Catholic Church and the dark sides of church history. After Christianity was recognized as the state religion, the Church did not merely guide spiritual life, it came to dominate the social and political landscape of Europe for centuries. The fusion of religion and secular power created a centralized structure of authority, where the decisions of popes and the clergy shaped not only matters of faith, but also determined the destinies of communities and even entire nations. Great power, however, came with equally grave consequences. The Church used religion as a tool to legitimize repression, eradicating dissent through the Inquisition, a vast system of trials and executions that targeted not just followers of other faiths, but also reformers and even rival members within the Church itself. The launching of the Crusades, initially declared to protect the Holy Land, but in reality aimed at expanding political influence, brought about severe social and humanitarian consequences. The Church also exercised control over knowledge, banning books, including both magical texts and ancient wisdom, if they did not serve the purpose of maintaining the Church's power. Yet, some magic books were quietly protected or exploited if they helped solidify clerical dominance, such as in the case of the Sworn Book of Honorius. In modern history, the Church established or maintained alliances with political forces to defend its interests, from signing the Lateran Treaty with Mussolini and turning a blind eye to fascist regimes, to shielding or even aiding Nazi war criminals after World War II, including those involved in the Holocaust. Many of the Church's moral scandals were hidden or allowed to fester for decades. Beneath a veneer of piety, the Magdalen laundries in Ireland were, in reality, forced labor camps for women, notorious for serious abuses kept secret for years. The issue of child sexual abuse by thousands of priests in multiple countries only came to light under immense public and media pressure, despite evidence that senior leaders were aware and actively concealed the crimes. On another front, the Church has sought to manipulate and control history, for example by legitimizing Inquisition trials in internal reports to downplay the number of victims, or by defaming figures who threatened the power structure, such as the deliberate identification of Mary Magdalene as a prostitute to erase any possibility she had a leadership role in early Christian communities. Recent financial scandals, such as the case of Cardinal Angelo Becciu, have exposed the dark side of the Church's financial structure and authority, with evidence of money laundering and massive property transfers taking place within the Church almost entirely without independent oversight. These dark pages are not simply chapters of the past. They continue to affect the standing and credibility of the Church today, raising difficult questions about responsibility and the relationship between religion and morality in modern society. Exploding craters in Siberia. When the vast tundras of Siberia enter the summer months, layers of earth that have been frozen for tens of thousands of years begin to thaw bit by bit. On these flat and barren stretches, researchers first noticed small surface cracks, which eventually gave way to powerful explosions that shook the ground and left behind deep, gaping holes right in the midst of the frozen wilderness. This phenomenon, now increasingly common on the Yamal and Gaidan peninsulas, has become a hotly debated topic among Earth scientists. The source of the Siberian craters lies deep beneath the permafrost, where massive reserves of methane and other ancient hydrocarbons have been trapped since the Ice Age. Over millennia, layers of marine sediment and the remains of long-buried organisms created vast pockets of gas that could not escape due to the low temperatures and high pressure of the frozen ground. As global temperatures rise, Siberia's permafrost is thawing faster than predicted. The ground becomes unstable, and the methane trapped below starts building up pressure until the Earth can no longer contain it. An underground explosion erupts, gas shoots skyward, and the land collapses, leaving a perfectly round crater that can sometimes be dozens of meters wide. Initially, geologists argued fiercely over the cause of these craters. Some suggested they were linked to meteorite impacts or the remnants of ancient dried-up lakes. However, field observations and analysis of the escaping gases and surrounding sediments have made it clear that the crucial factor is the accumulation of methane beneath the permafrost. The process doesn't just create deep explosions, it also affects the global carbon cycle. As methane, a powerful greenhouse gas, escapes into the atmosphere, it accelerates global warming, setting off a feedback loop between melting ice and the release of greenhouse gases. The geological makeup of Siberia plays a key role in this phenomenon. The permafrost layer is not uniform, ranging from just a few hundred meters to over a kilometer thick, leading to varied rates of thawing from place to place. Methane can gather just beneath the surface or be compressed under thick ice, allowing pressure to reach extreme levels before a blast occurs. New craters often appear near areas that were once ancient lakebeds, where ice melts faster than in surrounding regions. Yet many craters have been found in places with no history of lakes, underscoring the central role of climate change in this phenomenon. At the same time, simulations show that thawing happens both from above, as warm sunlight strikes, and from below, as heat from methane pockets rises. When the two processes meet and pressure spikes, the ground can no longer hold, resulting in a gas explosion and the formation of a deep pit. This phenomenon alters the landscape and leaves dramatic evidence of Earth's internal forces at work in our modern era. These Siberian craters are not merely odd natural events, they are warning signals about climate change and its unpredictable impacts on polar ecosystems. Monitoring and analyzing the gases and topography of new craters allows scientists to better predict changes in permafrost, as well as assess the risks posed by ancient gases now escaping the grip of nature. Each crater that appears stands as living proof of Earth's ceaseless transformation in the age of global change. Neanderthal genes and the link to autism. Recent genetic studies have illuminated the relationship between modern humans and our Neanderthal ancestors through gene traces preserved in today's DNA. Sequencing of Neanderthal DNA from ancient fossils has revealed that about 2 to 3% of the genome of most people outside Africa originated from interbreeding between Homo sapiens and Neanderthals tens of thousands of years ago. A 2024 study found that certain genetic variants inherited from Neanderthals are directly related to neurological traits, including factors associated with autism in modern humans. Rather than increasing the overall proportion of Neanderthal DNA in those with autism, the analysis showed that it is specific gene segments inherited from Neanderthals that play a foundational role in regulating certain aspects of brain development and, in turn, contribute to the mechanisms behind autistic spectrum disorders. This not only deepens our understanding of human evolution, but also opens new perspectives on the origins of modern neurological conditions. These ancient genes may have provided some survival advantages in ancient environments, but in today's society, their effects on behavior and biology are far more complex. This research underscores the ongoing influence of archaic genetic heritage, especially from Neanderthals, in shaping biological, neuropsychiatric, and health traits in modern humans. It represents an interdisciplinary approach linking genetics, anthropology, and biomedical science, broadening our understanding of the relationship between evolutionary history and contemporary medical phenomena. Meteorite-containing quasi-crystal. From the remote mountains of eastern Siberia, the discovery of a small meteorite fragment has opened a new chapter in our understanding of the origins of cosmic matter. Known as Katirka, this specimen is unlike any meteorite ever found. When mineralogists examined it with electron microscopes and spectrometers, they discovered it contained quasi-crystals, a rare atomic structure previously thought to be artificially created only in laboratories. A quasi-crystal is a material with a regular atomic structure, but unlike ordinary crystals, its arrangement does not repeat periodically. This produces multifaceted symmetrical patterns, defying all classical definitions of crystallography, and was once thought impossible to exist in nature. Yet, within this billion-year-old meteorite, scientists have uncovered the first natural evidence of quasi-crystals formed in space. The quasi-crystal traces are embedded deep in an alloy mineral, an unprecedented combination in any known terrestrial rock. This suggests the meteorite's material underwent intense cosmic collisions at temperatures and pressures far beyond what occurs in Earth's crust. Such impacts likely happened during the early formation of the solar system, as asteroids and protoplanets smashed into each other, generating the extreme conditions needed to produce such strange crystalline forms. Determining the natural origin of quasi-crystals in meteorites not only proves that exotic materials can form spontaneously in nature, but also opens up new avenues for studying the pre-planetary history of matter. The isotopic composition of these minerals helps geologists estimate the meteorite's age and correlate it with major events in the solar system's past. Finding quasi-crystals in meteorites also raises questions about the possible existence of unknown materials on other celestial bodies. This discovery has changed the scientific perception of the diversity and complexity of cosmic matter. Every meteorite fragment like Katirka serves as a witness to extreme physical processes, preserving a record of the solar system's earliest days and the possible evolution of matter in space. Continued research on quasi-crystal samples will likely pose new questions about physics and the mysterious workings of the primordial universe. The Mammoth Ivory Crown in Denisova Cave. Deep inside Denisova Cave in the Altai Mountains, an ancient cultural layer has revealed itself through seemingly lifeless artifacts that shed light on the deep history of prehistoric Siberia. In this land where the ground remains frozen year-round, archaeologists made a remarkable discovery. A crown crafted from mammoth ivory, dating from 35,000 to 50,000 years ago. The object's structure consists of a thin strip, cut from the tusk of a mature mammoth, bent to fit snugly around the crown of an adult human's head, its surface still bearing traces of fine engravings and careful polishing. The process of shaping mammoth ivory required specialized cutting, forming, heat softening, and manual polishing techniques, demonstrating that the maker understood both the properties of the material and the complexities of its craftsmanship. Mammoth ivory itself was a precious resource, only available during the era when herds of mammoths roamed the frigid northern grasslands, establishing a clear ecological connection between ancient humans and their environment. Analysis of the crown's work surfaces shows it was intentionally shaped for a specific form, distinct from everyday utilitarian objects. Beyond its material value, the ivory crown also reflects the social organization and local customs of its makers. The presence of such a unique ornament in Denisova Cave, where stone tools, bone needles, and bead strings have also been uncovered, indicates a society with a certain level of organization, defined social roles, and distinct spiritual belief. The engravings and decorative elements on the crown hint at symbolism or authority linked to its wearer, even if direct evidence for ritual use or social status has not yet been found. What is especially remarkable is that the mammoth ivory crown was found in the same archaeological layer as teeth and fossilized bones belonging to Denisovans, a human group genetically distinct from both Neanderthals and modern Homo sapiens. The coincidence of artifact and fossil strengthens the theory that the crown belonged to Denisovan individuals themselves and provides a rare glimpse into their creativity, communication, and division of labor. Researchers have found numerous other ivory, bone, stone, and bead artifacts in Denisova Cave, painting a vivid picture of a prehistoric society skilled at utilizing natural resources and applying advanced knowledge and techniques. Sewing needles, bracelets, and mammoth ivory bead necklaces discovered alongside the crown all bear witness to the spiritual life, rituals, and individual symbols present in this land since the Ice Age. With every deeper excavation in Denisova Cave, new details emerge about the society, customs, and craftsmanship of its ancient inhabitants. The mammoth ivory crown is not only evidence for the existence of a mysterious branch of humanity, it also helps reconstruct the social development, community structure, and spiritual life of the ancestors of modern humans in Northern Asia, tens of thousands of years ago. The mystery of lost civilizations and forgotten technologies. The mystery of lost civilizations and vanished technologies has always ignited curiosity and challenged fundamental assumptions about human history. Off the coast of the Ryukyu Islands, the discovery of a submerged stone structure has sparked decades of debate. The formation features perfectly straight steps and sharp right-angled cuts, a look radically different from typical natural geological features. Many scientists maintain that the site is the result of distinctive erosion and weathering found in the Japanese coastal waters, yet some independent experts point out the rare geometric characteristics and raise the possibility that it was constructed by humans thousands of years ago, perhaps even linked to the legend of a sunken continent. Meanwhile, Egyptian archaeology has raised a cross-ocean mystery. When analyzing royal mummies, scientists found traces of nicotine and cocaine compounds that existed only in the Americas before Columbus. This startling result has triggered fierce debate about the potential existence of ancient trade routes between the continents, suggesting connections that far outstrip conventional ideas of the movement of civilizations from Mesopotamia to the Americas. While contamination or laboratory error has been cited to explain the findings, some researchers still ask whether Egyptian seafarers or American voyagers once crossed the ocean, undertaking journeys lost to the written record. In the Middle East, excavations at Tal el Hammam in Jordan have yielded extraordinarily unusual evidence. This site, thought by many scholars to be synonymous with the biblical city of Sodom, destroyed by fire and brimstone, has revealed glassy ceramic fragments and bodies bearing scorch marks, mainly around the abdomen and chest. Most theories focus on two possibilities. Either a massive meteorite strike unleashed a thermal shockwave that obliterated the city, or the destruction was the result of an unknown type of weapon lost to ancient history. Although more evidence is needed, the discovery adds an important piece to the puzzle of how such thriving cities could collapse overnight, and whether technologies or knowledge existed far beyond what conventional history acknowledges. These stories show that humanity's march towards civilization may have been far more complex than the traditional linear narrative suggests. The appearance of out-of-place artifacts and strange findings in modern archaeology continues to expand the frontier of questions about lost civilizations, vanished achievements, and the real extent of ancient technological and cultural exchange across oceans in eras for which so little documentation survives. Legends, myths, and lost civilizations. The legends and myths of vanished civilizations have always run parallel to official history, and often penetrate even more deeply into the human psyche because of their mysteries, layers of meaning, and the tantalizing blur between reality and fable. The city of Iram of the Pillars, mentioned in the Quran as the richest center on the Arabian Peninsula, is said to have gathered powerful tribes and built mighty fortresses among the sands. According to legend, Iram reached the peak of wealth and splendor before being suddenly buried by storms, living on only in religious memory and scattered writings. The search for Iram's real location remains unsolved, despite expeditions to the borders of the Rub al-Khali Desert and the Saudi Arabian Peninsula, with the truth remaining delicately balanced between history and myth. To the far north, the story of the Viking settlements in Greenland has left an enormous gap for historians and archaeologists. The eastern and western settlements, once thriving centers of Nordic farming and trade with Europe, were abandoned within a few centuries. All that remains are stone foundations, deserted churches, and fragmentary accounts by medieval European clerics. Theories for the collapse range from climate change making winters too harsh for crops, to resource exhaustion, conflict with indigenous peoples, or disease, but to this day, there is no convincing answer for the disappearance of an entire community. Great cultures such as the Vinca in southeastern Europe, the Mississippian in North America, the Axumite in the Horn of Africa, or Nineveh, the Assyrian capital, demonstrated complex social organization, thriving trade, or religious centers. Vinca pioneered agriculture and metallurgy in Europe, Axumite controlled trade routes linking Rome and India, and Nineveh was once the world's largest city, its vast library filled with clay tablets. Yet the ends of these civilizations are often vague, sometimes dissolving through migration or abrupt decline, leaving only a few lines of undeciphered script or, as with Cucuteni Tripoli in Eastern Europe, the repeated burning and rebuilding of cities, confusing the archaeological record and obscuring the causes of collapse. Kerma in Nubia reveals the meeting of local and Egyptian cultures, rising to power before succumbing to external influence or conquest. The Etruscans in Tuscany left a legacy of language, architecture, and art, but after their assimilation by Rome, much of their identity vanished, only partially preserved in script and enigmatic cultural traces. Ancient Iran once hosted the giraffe culture. Builders of large cities and creators of geometric scripts now vanished, their tombs and ruins scattered along ancient riverbeds. What unites all these civilizations is their advanced society and technology compared to their neighbors, cities, trade networks, monumental works. Yet when they fell, they were almost erased from the stream of history, surviving only as legends, myths, or puzzling relics. The search for their stories is also a quest to solve the riddle of their collapse, wars, or internal upheavals never fully recorded. To this day, every remaining site is not just a material witness, but a foundation for modern humanity to keep asking, what is the true nature of social progress, the fragility of great systems, and the fate that awaits civilizations on Earth? Admiral Byrd's expedition and the Hollow Earth hypothesis. In the early 20th century, Admiral Richard E. Byrd became synonymous with the great Antarctic expeditions of the United States Navy, inaugurating the era of modern polar research. Byrd and his teams conducted numerous flights over the frozen continent, establishing the first research bases there and collecting vast amounts of valuable scientific data. It was against this backdrop of science and adventure that fantastical stories began to emerge. Unofficial accounts and popular tales about Byrd's journeys quickly spread and became entwined with the Hollow Earth hypothesis. According to the legend, Admiral Byrd reached the gateway to the inner world, somewhere beneath Antarctica's ice, a portal leading to an inner kingdom within the planet, with an environment unlike the surface and life following entirely different rules. Followers of the Hollow Earth theory often point to secret diaries or mysterious photographs, claiming that Byrd's expedition witnessed strange polar phenomena, brilliant skies, bizarre creatures, and even evidence of a hidden civilization. Despite the fact that all official reports deny the existence of any underground world, the Hollow Earth theory continues to capture the imagination of generations and remains one of the most compelling modern myths associated with Admiral Byrd's explorations. From a scientific perspective, Byrd's expeditions opened a new chapter in the exploration and understanding of Antarctica, yielding discoveries crucial to global geography and climate science. Yet it is precisely the unresolved mysteries of the far polar regions that continue to nurture theories and legends far beyond the boundaries of science, adding even greater allure to the enigma of the frozen continent. The statue of Hermes buried beneath the sewers of Heraclea. The discovery of a statue of the god Hermes buried beneath the ancient sewer system of Heraclea marks an important transitional chapter in Europe's religious history. As Christianity became the official religion of the Roman Empire, traditional symbols of Greek worship like Hermes were gradually banned and purged. However, instead of destroying these old statues completely, some local inhabitants chose to bury them carefully beneath public works, preserving cultural memory and protecting religious heritage in the midst of turbulent times. The Hermes statue unearthed in this archaeological find is large and was laid to rest in a solemn position, indicating that reverence for this deity persisted quietly even as society entered a new era. This act also reflects the tension between the polytheistic traditions of Greek and Roman religion and the rising monotheism of Christianity during this period of transition. The people of Heraclea both accepted the new faith and strove to preserve the values of the old through clandestine rituals. Archaeological evidence of statues hidden beneath public infrastructure like sewers helps researchers better understand the transformation of religious beliefs and the ways people coped with sweeping cultural changes throughout history. Beneath layers of earth and stone, ostensibly the graveyard of the past, lie stories of adaptation and the preservation of identity, painting a clearer portrait of how the religious and social landscape of modern Europe took shape. Rediscovering the sunken Egyptian city. The city of Heracleion, also known as Thonis, once served as a key center of trade and religion in ancient Egypt. At its height, Heracleion controlled all import and export activity at the Nile Delta and was home to sacred temples dedicated to both Egyptian and Greek gods. However, geological upheaval, subsidence, and rising sea levels caused the city's rapid downfall at the end of the 2nd century BCE. The sinking occurred so quickly that much of its architecture and even food supplies remained preserved beneath layers of mud and seawater. The discovery of Heracleion in 2001, thanks to geophysical surveys and underwater excavations, has shed new light on a metropolis lost for millennia. Archaeologists uncovered invaluable artifacts, including colossal red granite statues of gods, carved blocks linked to religious ceremonies, ships, and thousands of everyday items. Most remarkable, some baskets of food and fruit from over 2,400 years ago have been found intact, demonstrating how the waterlogged environment preserved details of daily life and belief. Uncovering Heracleion has not only enabled the reconstruction of the city's history of commerce, religious ritual, and Mediterranean economic life, but also provided evidence of how natural disasters can determine the fate of coastal civilizations. Heracleion is a prime example of how underwater archaeology can transform our understanding of the history of Egypt's great port cities and their neighbors. The origin of the Griffin legend, from dinosaur bones. The origins of the Griffin legend have long been debated among archaeologists and cultural historians. One widely accepted theory holds that the image of the griffin, a creature with the body of a lion and the head of an eagle, arose when nomadic tribes of Central Asia stumbled across Protoceratops dinosaur fossils in Mongolia, China. The large crested skulls and beaked faces of these bones are said to have made a lasting impression, sparking tales of hybrid beasts that combined the traits of both mammals and birds and spreading these stories across ancient cultures. However, recent studies led by paleontologists and cultural historians have questioned this theory's validity. They point out that the archaeological distribution of griffin depictions does not correspond with Protoceratops fossil sites, nor is there clear evidence that ancient communities ever excavated or encountered these fossils on a scale that could explain a universal myth. In addition, artistic representations of the griffin in ancient Egypt and many other civilizations appear in different times and places, while Protoceratops fossils are concentrated mainly in East Asia. A new and prominent view suggests that the griffin is a product of collective imagination and cultural creativity, rather than a direct response to fossil discoveries. The griffin may have emerged independently as a symbol uniting the powers of two animals, fulfilling religious or political needs for power and protection in ancient societies. The enduring presence and popularity of the griffin across cultures is not necessarily grounded in specific archaeological finds, but more in humanity's capacity for symbolism and myth-making. Reevaluating the griffin's origins through archaeological and cultural research helps us better understand how civilizations create myths and icons, and raises profound questions about the role of imagination and collective creativity in the long arc of human history. The magical medieval birth girdle. The discovery of a 15th century magical birth girdle in England has offered a scientific lens on folk beliefs surrounding childbirth in pre-modern European society. This girdle is a strip of leather, about 10 feet long, adorned with Christian images and numerous prayer inscriptions. It was worn by English women during pregnancy and labor, intended to ward off danger and protect the lives of both mother and child. Physical and chemical analysis has revealed animal protein residue and signs of contact with human bodily fluids on the girdle's surface, proving it was actually used in practice, not just in ritual. The illustrations and prayers focus on the cross, the blood of Christ, and the name of Jesus, reflecting a blend of Christian faith and magical thinking to confront risks that could not yet be controlled by medicine. The most notable scientific aspect of this artifact is how it represents the universal fear of childbirth in a time of high maternal and infant mortality. When medical knowledge was limited, belief in protective amulets became an essential human response to biological uncertainty. Historians and anthropologists view the magical birth girdle as evidence of the intersection between religious faith, folk tradition, and communal attitudes toward childbirth in the Middle Ages. The object not only enriches our understanding of reproductive culture, but also illustrates how societies adapt to the limits of contemporary science. The supervolcano beneath Alaska. Beneath the thick snow and ice of the Aleutian Islands in Alaska, geologists have uncovered strange traces of powerful tectonic activity deep underground. The results of a series of geophysical surveys and geological analyses in this region have led to the hypothesis of a hidden ancient supervolcano beneath Alaska. Unlike more famous volcanoes such as Yellowstone, this system does not break the surface, but is instead buried under the ocean, beneath mountain ranges and canyons that stretch for hundreds of kilometers along the seafloor. By examining rings of ancient volcanic sediment, scientists have tracked a series of major eruptions that occurred tens of thousands of years ago, leaving behind thick layers of ash and a colossal caldera structure beneath the sea. Researchers with the U.S. Geological Survey have connected a chain of smaller volcanoes along Unimak Island and discovered that they are in fact vents lying along the rim of a supercaldera over 15 kilometers wide, visible only through seismic imaging, geomagnetic data. Geochemical evidence shows that these ancient eruptions released rare gases and minerals on a scale sufficient to alter the atmosphere, increase global ash levels, and drive the climate into periods of intense cold. There was a time when temperatures across the northern hemisphere dropped dramatically, harvests failed, and ecosystems were disrupted for decades. The impact of another eruption on this scale in the modern era could surpass any volcanic disaster ever recorded. Thick ash clouds could block sunlight and lower global temperatures for years, plunging vast areas into a volcanic winter. Earthquakes and tsunamis would follow, and global transportation and aviation networks would be thrown into chaos. The existence of hidden supervolcanoes beneath ice and sea, as in Alaska, raises immense challenges for forecasting natural disasters on Earth. Mapping the structure and warning signs of these vast magma chambers is a central focus of modern geology. Remote sensing and deep 3D modeling technology are crucial tools for identifying potential threats, helping humanity prepare for events that could transform the entire course of life on this planet. The Yeti and hairy monsters of Alaska. Across the frozen tundra of southwestern Alaska, stories of mysterious creatures have always lingered in the memories and legends of the native people. They call these beings by many names, but the most common are Uriuli and the Alaskan hairy man. According to the tribes living along the shores of Lake Iliamna or around the Yukon River, this creature is described as gigantic, sometimes standing 3 meters tall, its entire body covered with thick, long hair, arms hanging down to its knees, and eyes that glow in the darkness. Though modern science has yet to document any physical specimens, the legend of the Uriuli has been passed down through countless generations, woven into the spiritual life and beliefs of the Arctic people. Especially during winter gatherings, elders warn the young not to enter certain forbidden lands at night, as those are the domains of these enigmatic beings. Some believe the Yuri-Yuli originated from people who became lost or left their communities hundreds of years ago, slowly evolving and adapting to the harsh conditions until they became part human, part beast. In recent times, there have been a few reports of strange creatures seen at the edge of forests or crossing snow-covered hills, described as tall, fast-moving, and occasionally emitting bizarre sounds in the stillness of night. In 2013, in the village of Napakiak, a group of people claimed to have seen the silhouette of the hairy man approaching the village, prompting children to flee indoors and adults to stand guard until the figure vanished into the deep woods. Alongside tales of the Yuri-Yuli, considered gentle and shy, there are also legends of the Alaskan hairy man, a more aggressive creature known to attack if its territory is disturbed. Some reports from remote regions speak of mysterious livestock disappearances or chilling screams echoing from the deep forest, though all evidence remains anecdotal or limited to tracks left in the snow. From a scientific perspective, zoologists and anthropologists believe these phenomena are likely the result of collective memory, the awe of untamed nature, and visual distortions in the extreme Arctic light. Yet these legends endure, remaining an essential part of local cultural identity and offering a fascinating subject for the study of collective psychology and human ecology in some of the most unforgiving environments on the planet. Excavating the 350-year Old Eskimo Massacre Site. When layers of permafrost and soil in Alaska were removed during a modern archaeological dig, researchers uncovered direct evidence of a dark chapter in Eskimo history. Beneath the frozen ground at the Agaligmiut site, the traces of a centuries-old tragedy, long thought only legend, slowly came into focus. More than 24 skeletons lay piled together, many bound with grass cords, their faces turned downward, revealing that this was no ordinary burial, but the aftermath of mass violence. Physical evidence at the scene, such as skull wounds, arrowheads, and spear points near the remains, and scattered burn marks in the soil, paints a picture of fierce conflict. Notably, the majority of the victims were women, children, and the elderly, suggesting the attack struck when most of the village's men or warriors were absent. The devastation, along with traces of a burnt settlement, transformed what had been an oral tale into a historical event. Anthropological analysis shows the victims belonged to the Yupik community, a branch of the Eskimo people that has survived in the far north for thousands of years. Researchers believe the conflict may have arisen over resources, hunting rights, or disputes with neighboring groups in the harsh climate. Local legend even recalls a quarrel during a game that escalated into large-scale revenge after a single misthrown dart. The excavation not only confirms the reality behind what was once considered myth, but also offers a new perspective on society, law, and the forces of violence in prehistoric Alaska. Archaeologists also found associated objects, stone tools, grass cords, fish bones, and everyday items, allowing them to reconstruct daily life in a community wiped out in a single calamity. This event stands as a powerful example of internal conflict, highlighting the fragility of polar cultures, where people have always faced dangers from both the elements and one another. Primitive life in China, 40,000 years ago. Archaeological discoveries at Shama Bay in China, dated to around 40,000 years ago, have revealed new insights into the primitive lifestyle and the development of technology and society in prehistoric East Asia. Research shows that ancient inhabitants here learned to extract and process ochre into red pigment on a large scale, a significant step in the use of mineral resources for cultural, spiritual, or artistic purposes. The pigment workshop remains and stone tools found at Shama Bay indicate the formation of organized production activities, marking an early phase of labor division in prehistoric communities. The use of red pigment for painting, decoration, or funerary rituals is evidence of the development of symbolic thought, heralding the dawn of figurative art and intangible cultural practices. The sophistication with which pigments were produced shows accumulated knowledge and skill passed down through generations, forming the bedrock of ancient technical and artistic traditions in the region. However, archaeology also reveals technological limitations at Shama Bay, as bone tools and jewelry remain scarce. This suggests population movements or differentiation among groups, each with distinct technological bases and habits, coexisting and interacting across the vast landscape of ancient East Asia. The findings at Shama Bay thus provide not only early evidence for mineral working techniques, but also reflect the emergence of networks for knowledge exchange among prehistoric communities. Scientifically, Sharma Bay is seen as a gateway for the development of primitive technologies and the foundation for social differentiation, occupational specialization, and the earliest elements of spiritual culture in the history of humanity in East Asia. Prehistoric solar storms and the evidence in Greenland's ice. Analysis of ice cores taken from Greenland has opened a new window on the history of solar storms that once impacted the Earth in ancient times. Studying layers of ice thousands of years old, scientists have identified traces of radioactive isotopes such as beryllium-10 and chlorine-36 produced by intense cosmic radiation. The results show that around 660 BCE, Earth was hit by a solar storm far more powerful than anything seen in modern times. Solar storms occur when the sun violently erupts, sending high-speed charged particles toward Earth. When these meet the planet's magnetic field, most radiation is blocked, but some energy still penetrates, causing strong ionization in the atmosphere and leaving clear traces in the radioactive isotopes that accumulate in ancient ice. The strongest storms can impact the entire biosphere, altering the natural radiation environment and triggering extreme events in climate, biology, and even electromagnetism. If a solar storm of the same scale as 2,600 years ago were to happen today, it could cause the collapse of global power grids, satellites, and digital infrastructure within hours. Greenland's ice core studies not only provide evidence of ancient weather events, but also serve as a warning for modern society about our vulnerability in the age of technology. In recent history, smaller storms like the 1989 event that plunged Quebec, Canada, into darkness have already caused significant economic damage. A much stronger event could overwhelm all predictions, disrupting global communications, destabilizing control systems, and triggering crises in information and material supply chains. The evidence from Greenland's ice raises critical questions for scientists and policymakers. How has Earth faced threats from space in the past? And are we truly prepared for the possibility of extreme cosmic weather in the future? The Valley of Death in Kamchatka. Deep within the volcanic mountains of Kamchatka, Russia, the Valley of Death is regarded as one of the most dangerous places on Earth for living creatures. For decades, scientists have recorded the deaths of countless animals, birds, foxes, bears, even raptors who perish within its boundaries for no immediately apparent reason. Modern surveys have revealed that the valley's air, especially in summer, contains concentrations of carbon dioxide and hydrogen sulfide far beyond the tolerance of mammals, forming a dense layer near the ground that cannot escape due to the surrounding terrain. Since the late 20th century, Russian geologists have measured soil, collected rock samples, and analyzed the microclimate, discovering spikes in toxic gas levels during ice melt or volcanic activity nearby, which alter the valley's geological structure. These conditions have made the Valley of Death a natural exclusion zone where some animals perish within minutes of entering. While toxic gas buildup has been observed at volcanic sites worldwide, few places are as extensive and deadly as Kamchatka's valley. Beyond the science, the Valley of Death is shrouded in mystery and legend stories told by indigenous communities and the earliest explorers. Folk tales speak of giant copper cauldrons buried underground, believed to be relics of an ancient civilization or objects fallen from space. Others recount sightings of giants emerging from the valley's mists, striking fear into anyone who dares enter. Although modern researchers have found no large metal objects, the persistence of these stories only heightens the region's already formidable mystery. Recent expeditions have focused on pinpointing the origins and patterns of gas emissions and their connections to Kamchatka's volcanic and geothermal activity. Some theories suggest that natural gas pockets accumulate beneath the surface, releasing large amounts of toxic gas during temperature changes or seismic events. This process is unpredictable. It can occur suddenly or vanish just as quickly, making it difficult to forecast danger levels. For now, the Valley of Death remains a blank spot on the biological map of Kamchatka Peninsula, an unresolved phenomenon at the crossroads of science and legend, holding layers of data and folklore handed down through generations. Zombie bacteria outbreaks from thawing permafrost. As Siberia faces summers of unprecedented warmth, the permafrost begins to thaw, exposing soil layers that have remained sealed for tens of thousands of years. Hidden within this ancient ice are the remains of extinct megafauna and wild animal populations that survived through many climatic eras, including the dormant seeds of plagues that once ravaged both wildlife and humans across northern Asia. One of the greatest threats is the resurgence of anthrax bacteria, a microorganism capable of surviving for decades or centuries as spores preserved in nature's deep freeze. During an unusual heatwave in western Siberia, the carcass of a reindeer that had died from anthrax decades earlier was revealed as the ground thawed. Anthrax spores, shielded from light and air for years, suddenly found ideal conditions to reawaken. With rising temperatures and thinning ice, the bacteria spread once again through soil and water. In a short time, an epidemic broke out, infecting thousands of reindeer and passing to humans through contaminated food and water sources. Epidemiologists quickly mobilized, combining geological and microbiological research to trace the origin of the outbreak and its transmission cycle. The Siberian anthrax episode is now seen as a textbook example of the risks that ancient pathogens can resurface in an era of climate change. The permafrost of the Arctic and Siberia is a vast natural archive of bacteria and ancient viruses that once flourished on Earth, now posing a growing threat of new outbreaks as global temperatures rise. This is not merely a local issue, but a global concern. Laboratory and field studies confirm the remarkable survival of bacteria and viruses in extreme cold. Climate models predict that permafrost will continue to shrink, meaning more dormant pathogens could soon be released into the environment. This presents a major challenge for health systems, disease surveillance, and biosecurity worldwide, while highlighting the deep links among climate, geology, and the evolution and persistence of ancient microbes. Prehistoric plants that sleep at night. Discoveries of insect marks on fossilized leaves from the Paleozoic and Mesozoic eras have revealed a fascinating behavior in ancient plants' daily life cycles. Analysis of these fossil leaves shows that bite marks mostly appear on leaves that had already curled or folded at night, just as many modern plants do when darkness falls. This behavior is visible throughout ancient strata, from the era when the first land plants emerged to the rise of flowering plants. Through hundreds of fossil samples from around the world, paleobotanists have found that leaf folding is not limited to any single plant group, but appears across many evolutionary branches. Insect damage patterns show that most feeding happened when the plants had shifted into their sleep state at night, their leaves rolled up to shield the most sensitive tissues. This evidence supports the idea that leaf folding played a protective or water-conserving role, though the ultimate biological function remains a mystery. Many hypotheses have been proposed, including suggestions that plants sleep to avoid frost damage or to minimize water loss, but modern physiology still has not pinned down the precise mechanism. Even Charles Darwin referred to this phenomenon as an unresolved mystery in his book on plant movement. The latest fossil evidence shows that nighttime leaf folding is not unique to modern flora, but is a deeply rooted behavior, reflecting the complex and varied adaptations of plants over hundreds of millions of years of evolution. The Genie Lamp, a Roman-era protective talisman. The Genie Lamp, discovered in the city of David, Jerusalem, stands as a prime example of protective beliefs in ancient Roman society. This bronze lamp, shaped with a human face, was found by archaeologists intentionally buried beneath the foundation of a building nearly 2,000 years old, dating to a period of major historical and religious upheaval in the city. The practice of placing such objects, lamps, talismans, or sacred tokens beneath house foundations was common in many ancient cultures, intended to bring peace, luck, and protection against supernatural forces believed to threaten the household. Experts classify this lamp as a foundation deposit, an item placed at key locations during construction to safeguard the building and its inhabitants. In the multi-religious and superstitious environment of Roman-era Jerusalem, belief in gods, demons, and invisible powers shaped the daily spiritual lives of urban dwellers. The concept of the genie, or jinn, widespread across ancient Middle Eastern cultures, reveals how religious systems and beliefs mingled and influenced each other. The discovery of this genie lamp offers researchers a clearer view of ancient worship, protective rituals, and spiritual practices in Roman and Middle Eastern cities. It shows how people in the ancient world sought safety and good fortune amid life's uncertainties. In this way, objects like the genie lamp are more than archaeological finds. They are keys to understanding the diversity of beliefs about the sacred, magic, and the role of faith in the development of ancient cities. Legends of ancient high technology. The legacy of ancient civilizations is not just preserved in tales of war and destruction, their texts and artifacts also hint at levels of technology beyond what modern archaeology has predicted. Nowhere is this more debated than in the epic poems Mahabharata and Ramayana of ancient India, which are filled with descriptions of Vimana flying machines piloted by gods, capable of moving freely through the sky, crossing vast distances, or even leaving the earth to travel into space. The sacred texts do not merely use mythic imagery, they contain passages that resemble technical manuals, descriptions of engines, cockpits, construction materials, operational procedures, and even categories of Vimana range from small craft for short hops to massive ships for intercontinental or interworld travel. Some sections mention fuel and principles of operation that read like ancient engineering guides, painting a picture of a society with knowledge of mechanics, dynamics, and organized transportation far ahead of what history has recorded. Beyond India, Middle Eastern archaeology has turned up other mysterious artifacts. The most famous is the Nimrud lens, a crystal with remarkable clarity and precision, discovered in the ruins of the Assyrian palace at Nimrud. With a focal length 3 times greater than modern magnifying glasses, this object allowed the ancients to study fine details or inscribe intricate designs on clay tablets. While some suggest it was just decorative or a fire-starting tool, scientists like Giovanni Pettinato have argued it could have been part of a primitive telescope, hinting that ancient astronomers may have watched the heavens with a precision far beyond mainstream expectations. Such artifacts and texts continue to provoke questions about ancient knowledge of physics, optics, and engineering. Were these societies merely agricultural and artisanal, or did they ever reach a technological level able to produce sophisticated devices for research, travel, or communication? Though still debated and lacking absolute proof, these clues are compelling enough to expand our inquiry into the possibility of advanced technology in the distant human past. The origins of the gods and the making of Near Eastern religions. In the evolution of religion in the ancient Near East, the name El holds a central place in the earliest Semitic beliefs. El is not just found in Hebrew, but is a key figure in the Canaanite faith, revered as the supreme deity, the creator of the universe, and the father of all other gods. The image and role of El persisted and changed across many neighboring cultures, creating deep connections among ancient peoples. As societies grew and city-states emerged across Mesopotamia, Canaan, Egypt, and Anatolia, mythology became more complex. El gradually merged with or was subsumed into other divine systems like Yahweh in Israelite tradition. This was the transition from polytheism to monotheism. In this era, El's characteristics, creative power, protector of society, patriarch of the gods, were absorbed into the figure of Yahweh, marking a turning point in the Abrahamic religious tradition. This transformation was not sudden but unfolded over centuries, shaped by many layers of cultural exchange. The ancient Israelites adopted and adapted elements from Canaanite, Babylonian, and even Assyrian mythology, forging a distinct religious identity. Traces of this process are seen in terminology, rituals, and creation stories, floods, divine imagery appearing in parallel across many civilizations. The use of El and its variants Elohim, El Elyon, El Shaddai in ancient texts reflects a legacy of inherited and reworked ideas about supreme divinity. In the West, among Greeks and Romans, El's influence can be traced in the development of gods like Zeus and Jupiter, also skyfathers and rulers of all things, showing a mythological thread stretching across generations and continents. The formation of Near Eastern religion was thus a tapestry of local identity and cultural contact, social power, and cosmological wonder. The story of the gods' origins, especially El, reveals not just religious history, but the evolution from polytheistic belief to the supreme God concept that would underpin the world's great monotheistic faith. Discovering penguin colonies by satellite. Across the frozen expanse of Antarctica, the survival of emperor penguins has always depended on the drifting ice sheets. For years, studying these colonies was a grueling task. The harsh terrain and the vast range of their habitat meant that researchers could only rely on brief expeditions and incomplete, often unreliable data. All of this changed when remote sensing technology advanced, giving ecologists the ability to see Antarctica from space. High-resolution satellite imagery opened up a completely new approach. Against the stark white of the ice, large brown stains became clearly visible evidence left behind by emperor penguin colonies after breeding season. Instead of counting birds one by one or constantly relocating research stations, scientists could now analyze these unique color patterns in satellite photos to estimate the size and location of each colony. From orbit, data revealed dozens of emperor penguin colonies, including many never previously recorded. Each colony could number in the hundreds, creating a vivid, diverse portrait of life in the harshest environment on Earth. Yet, the analysis also showed that breeding grounds are shrinking, with new, smaller colonies forming in different areas, a clear sign of dramatic changes in the habitat. Satellite monitoring not only allows accurate census, but lets scientists track changes year by year, revealing a serious downward trend in this iconic species. Melting ice, rising sea levels, and shifting weather patterns are pushing emperor penguins to the brink of extinction. Each breeding season now offers no guarantee for the survival of the next generation, as chicks face harsher conditions that exceed the species' natural limits. These discoveries from space have become essential for the scientific and conservation communities, highlighting the fate of emperor penguins and the power of modern technology in studying Earth's most remote ecosystems. The future of this ancient ice-bound species now depends in part on artificial eyes in orbit and on global awareness of the impact of climate change. If you find these mysterious stories fascinating, be sure to leave your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe so you won't miss any of our upcoming discoveries. We look forward to seeing you in the next video.